Silence is all I have left. The words echoed in Nathaniel Hayes's mind as he sat on his porch, watching the sun bleed red across the Montana horizon. 3 years had passed since Catherine died. 3 years of empty rooms and cold suppers. 3 years of neighbors trying to draw him back into the world. But Nathaniel wanted none of it. His cabin sat at the edge of Willow Creek, far enough from town that visitors were rare, just the way he liked it. The only sounds were wind through pine trees and water rushing over stones. Perfect silence. Until that October evening when the silence shattered, hoofbeats pounded up his dirt path. Nathaniel's hand moved instinctively to the rifle beside his chair. Strangers meant trouble, and trouble was the last thing he needed. But what appeared through the gathering dusk wasn't trouble at all. It was a woman. She rode a tired bay mare, her dark hair falling loose from beneath a worn hat. Even in the fading light, Nathaniel could see the exhaustion in her slumped shoulders, the desperation. "Please," she called out, her voice cracking like autumn leaves. "I need help." Nathaniel didn't move from his chair, didn't lower the rifle. "Creek's that way if you need water. Town's 5 miles south." "I can't go to town." The woman slid down from her horse, stumbled slightly. "They'll find me there." Now that was interesting. Who was looking for her? And why? But Nathaniel had learned long ago that caring about other people's troubles only brought pain. "Not my problem, miss." The woman took a step closer. Moonlight caught her face, revealing bruises along her jaw, fresh ones. "My name is Rebecca Morgan, and I think someone's trying to kill me." The words hung in the air like smoke from a dying fire. Nathaniel studied her carefully. Rebecca Morgan. He'd heard whispers of that name in town. Something about a scandal involving Judge Morgan's daughter. But what did he care about town gossip? "Still not my problem." Rebecca's eyes flashed with something between anger and desperation. "I have money. I can pay you." "Don't need your money." "Then what do you need?" The question caught him off guard. What did he need? Nothing. Nobody. Just silence and solitude until the day he joined Catherine in the ground. But something about this woman's voice tugged at a part of his heart he'd thought was dead. "Please," Rebecca whispered. "I have nowhere else to go." Nathaniel felt his resolve wavering. Damn it. This was exactly the kind of complication he'd spent 3 years avoiding. Yet something in her desperate plea reminded him of another voice. Catherine's voice. The night she died, she'd made him promise to keep living, to help others if he could. He'd failed at the living part. Maybe he could manage the helping. One night, Nathaniel said finally, lowering the rifle, "You can sleep in the barn. Come morning, you ride out." Relief flooded Rebecca's face. "Thank you." "Don't thank me yet. This place isn't exactly welcoming to visitors." Rebecca led her horse toward the barn but paused at the door. "Why did you say yes?" Nathaniel stood slowly, his joints protesting after hours in the chair. "Because my wife would haunt me forever if I turned away a woman in need." "Your wife?" "Dead 3 years now." The simple words carried the weight of mountains. Rebecca nodded slowly, understanding passing between them without need for explanation. As she disappeared into the barn, Nathaniel remained on the porch. The silence had returned, but somehow it felt different now, less complete, less peaceful. And for the first time in 3 years, Nathaniel Hayes wasn't sure if that was a good thing or a terrible mistake. But what he didn't know was that Rebecca Morgan's arrival would change everything he thought he wanted. The night stretched long and restless. Nathaniel lay in his bed staring at the ceiling beams Catherine had helped him install. Sleep wouldn't come. Not with a stranger sleeping just 50 yards away. Every sound made him tense. An owl hooting, a branch scraping against the barn roof. Was someone out there? Had Rebecca's pursuers followed her trail? Around midnight, he heard it. Soft crying coming from the barn. Nathaniel sat up, torn between concern and irritation. He'd offered shelter, not comfort. Getting involved in her troubles wasn't part of the bargain. But the crying continued. Quiet. Heartbroken. The sound of someone who thought no one could hear. Before he realized what he was doing, Nathaniel was pulling on his boots and walking across the yard. He found Rebecca sitting in the hay, her arms wrapped around her knees. Tears streaked her dirt-stained cheeks. "Can't sleep either," she said without looking up. "Hard to sleep when someone's crying loud enough to wake the dead." Rebecca almost smiled at that. "Almost, sorry, I tried to be quiet." Nathaniel leaned against the barn wall, keeping his distance. "You want to tell me what kind of trouble you're running from?" The kind that gets people killed. That narrows it down. This time Rebecca did smile. Just a little. You're not very good at conversation, are you? Haven't had much practice lately. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment. Then Rebecca spoke again, her voice barely above a whisper. My father is Judge Morgan. You probably heard of him. Nathaniel nodded. Everyone in 3 counties knew Judge Cornelius Morgan, rich, powerful, and corrupt as a snake oil salesman. I found out he's been taking bribes, throwing trials, letting murderers walk free if the price is right. Rebecca's hands clenched into fists. I tried to expose him. Gathered evidence, names, dates. Let me guess, he didn't appreciate that. He had me declared mentally unstable. Said I was having delusions. Had me locked away for 6 months. Rebecca's voice hardened. 6 months of doctors telling me I was crazy, that I'd imagined it all. Nathaniel felt something cold settle in his stomach. He'd heard stories about the territorial asylum. Nothing good. I escaped 3 days ago, stole a horse and rode hard, but they're following me. I can feel them getting closer. Why come here? Why not go to the territorial marshal? Rebecca laughed bitterly. Marshal Peters? He's on my father's payroll. They all are. The pieces clicked together in Nathaniel's mind. A corrupt judge with reach and influence, a daughter who threatened to expose everything, men who would do anything to silence her. And now she was here, in his barn, making his simple, quiet life complicated. But what troubled him most was that he found himself caring what happened to her. You can't stay here, he said finally. I know, I'll leave at first light. Where will you go? Rebecca shrugged. Denver, maybe. Try to find someone who'll listen. They'll catch you before you make it 10 miles. Maybe, but at least I'll die trying to do what's right. The casual way she spoke of death struck Nathaniel like a physical blow. How long since he'd met someone who still believed in doing what's right, someone who'd risk everything for truth. Catherine had been like that, fearless in the face of injustice. Get some sleep, Nathaniel said gruffly. We'll talk more in the morning. As he walked back to the house, Nathaniel's mind raced. Rebecca Morgan was trouble, the kind of trouble that could get a man killed. But she was also the first person in 3 years who'd made him feel something other than empty silence. And that scared him more than any corrupt judge ever could. Because caring about someone again meant risking his heart. And Nathaniel Hayes wasn't sure he was ready for that kind of pain. But what he didn't realize was that sometimes the heart chooses its own path regardless of what the mind wants. Dawn came too soon and not soon enough. Nathaniel woke to the smell of coffee brewing. Real coffee. Not the chicory substitute he'd been drinking. For a moment he forgot about his unexpected guest and simply enjoyed the familiar aroma, until he remembered he was supposed to be alone. He dressed quickly and stepped outside. Smoke curled from his chimney, and through the kitchen window he could see Rebecca moving around inside. Making yourself at home, I see, he said as he entered. Rebecca turned from the stove, a wooden spoon in her hand. I found coffee beans in your pantry. Figured I owed you breakfast for the night's shelter. She'd cleaned up, washed the dirt from her face and hands, braided her dark hair back. In the morning light, Nathaniel could see she was younger than he'd first thought. Maybe 25. And despite the bruises, undeniably beautiful. I don't need anyone cooking for me, he said gruffly. When's the last time you had a proper meal? Nathaniel paused. When was the last time? He mostly ate jerky and hardtack. Sometimes beans if he remembered to soak them. That's what I thought. Rebecca ladled eggs onto a plate. Sit down. Eat. Despite himself, Nathaniel obeyed. The eggs were perfect. Fluffy and seasoned with wild herbs she must have found near the creek. You're a good cook, he admitted reluctantly. My mother taught me before she died. Said a woman should be able to take care of herself and others. Smart woman? She was. Rebecca's expression darkened. Father changed after she died. Became different. Harder. Nathaniel understood that kind of change. Grief could hollow a man out. Make him into someone he didn't recognize. Is that when he started taking bribes? Rebecca nodded. Mother kept him honest. Reminded him of his principles. Without her, she shrugged. Power without conscience is a dangerous thing. They ate in comfortable silence for a few minutes. Then Rebecca asked the question Nathaniel had been dreading. What happened to your wife? Nathaniel's fork froze halfway to his mouth. Doesn't matter, it does to you. Those 4 simple words cut deeper than any knife. Because she was right. It mattered to him every single day. Influenza, he said finally. Came through town 3 winters ago. Took a lot of folks. Catherine was helping nurse the sick. His voice caught. She wouldn't stop, even when she got sick herself. She sounds like a wonderful woman. She was everything good in this world. Rebecca reached across the table and touched his hand briefly. Just a gentle press of fingers, but it sent shock waves through Nathaniel's system. He hadn't been touched with kindness in 3 years. "I'm sorry," she said simply. "Don't." Nathaniel pulled his hand away. "Don't give me pity. It's not pity. It's understanding." Before Nathaniel could respond, both of them heard it. Hoofbeats. Multiple riders approaching fast. Rebecca went pale. "They found me." Nathaniel moved to the window. 3 men on horseback were cresting the hill. He recognized the lead rider immediately. Frank Morrison, Judge Morgan's personal enforcer. A man who solved problems with bullets. "Barn now." Nathaniel grabbed his rifle from beside the door. "I won't let you get hurt because of me," Rebecca protested. "Too late for that. Move." But Rebecca stood her ground. "These men will kill you if they think you're helping me." "Let me worry about that." The steel in his voice brooked no argument. Rebecca ran for the back door as the riders entered the yard. Nathaniel stepped onto his porch, rifle cradled casually in his arms. "Morning, Morrison." Frank Morrison was a big man with small, cruel eyes. His 2 companions looked like they'd crawled out from under rocks, hired guns with no conscience. "Nathaniel Hayes." Morrison's voice dripped false friendliness. "Haven't seen you in town lately. Don't much care for town, so I hear." Morrison's gaze swept the cabin. "Nice quiet place you got here. Good for privacy. Good for being left alone." "Funny thing happened yesterday," Morrison continued, his horse prancing nervously. "Judge Morgan's daughter went missing from the territorial asylum. Poor girl's been having delusions. Dangerous to herself and others." Nathaniel kept his expression neutral. "Sorry to hear that. We're checking all the homesteads, making sure she hasn't hurt anyone." Morrison's eyes were cold as winter ice. "You see any strange women around here?" "Can't say I have. Mind if we look around, just to be safe?" It wasn't really a request, but Nathaniel wasn't really asking permission when he worked the lever on his rifle. "Yeah, I mind." The sound echoed across the yard like a gunshot. Morrison's companions reached for their weapons, but Morrison held up a hand. "Now, Hayes, no need to be unfriendly. My property. My rules. You want to search something, get a warrant. Judge Morgan is the warrant in these parts. Not on my land." The standoff stretched taut as a bowstring, 3 against 1. Nathaniel knew he couldn't win a gunfight. But he also knew Morrison wouldn't want to explain 3 dead bodies to the territorial marshal. Not yet, anyway. "Well," Morrison said finally, "if you do see anything unusual, you'll let us know. Won't you? Count on it." Morrison wheeled his horse around. "We'll be keeping an eye on things, Hayes. For your own safety, of course." The 3 riders thundered away, leaving dust and menace in their wake. Nathaniel waited until they disappeared over the ridge before allowing himself to breathe again. Rebecca emerged from the barn, her face ghostly white. "They'll be back," she said. "I know. You should have let them take me." Nathaniel looked at her for a long moment. This woman who'd brought nothing but trouble to his quiet life. This woman who'd somehow reminded him what it felt like to care about something other than his own grief. "No," he said quietly. "I shouldn't have." And that was when Rebecca Morgan realized that perhaps she'd found more than just shelter. Perhaps she'd found an ally. Maybe even something more. But what neither of them knew was that Morrison had left a man watching from the hills. That afternoon, Rebecca insisted on helping with chores. Nathaniel protested, but she ignored him completely. "I'm not helpless," she said, grabbing a water bucket. "And I won't sit idle while you do all the work." They worked in companionable silence. Rebecca proved surprisingly capable. She knew how to milk a cow, gather eggs, and mend a fence. "Where'd you learn all this?" Nathaniel asked, watching her expertly repair a gate hinge. "Before Father became a judge, we lived on a small farm. I was 14 when we moved to town." Rebecca's hands moved efficiently with the tools. "I hated leaving. Town life felt like wearing shoes that didn't fit. So why not come back to farming? With what money? Father controls everything, or he did, until I started digging into his business. They were interrupted by a shout from the creek. A young boy, maybe 12 years old, came running up the path. Mr. Hayes. Mr. Hayes. Nathaniel recognized him immediately. Tommy Brennan from the neighboring homestead. What's wrong, son? Ma says to tell you there's men asking questions about a woman. Dark hair, they said. Pretty, but dangerous. Tommy's eyes were wide with excitement and fear. They got money, Mr. Hayes, offering $5 to anyone who's seen her. Rebecca stepped behind Nathaniel, instinctively seeking shelter. You tell your ma I appreciate the warning, Nathaniel said, pressing a coin into Tommy's palm. And Tommy, you didn't see anyone here today. Understand? The boy nodded eagerly. Yes, sir. After Tommy left, Rebecca slumped against the fence post. $5, she said bitterly. That's more than most families see in a month. How long before someone decides I'm worth the risk? People around here aren't easily bought. Everyone has a price, Mr. Hayes. Even good people get desperate. Nathaniel wanted to argue, but he knew she was right. Times were hard. Crops had been poor. $5 could mean the difference between surviving winter and starving. We need to get you somewhere safe, he said. Where? My father has power, and he will try to use it, she whispered, her eyes clouded with fear. Ethan reached out, steadying her trembling hands. We'll face him together, he said, voice calm but firm, and in that moment the storm outside felt quieter than the storm within. They left at midnight, moving like ghosts through the pine forest. Nathaniel led the way on his black gelding, with Rebecca close behind on her bay mare. No words passed between them. Sound carried far in the mountain air, and Morrison's men could be anywhere. The trail to Silverton was treacherous even in daylight. At night, with only starlight to guide them, it became deadly. One wrong step could send horse and rider tumbling into a canyon. But it was their only chance. They'd been riding for 2 hours when Rebecca's horse stumbled. She managed to stay in the saddle, but the mare was clearly favoring her left front hoof. Nathaniel dismounted and examined the leg by moonlight. Stone bruise. She can't carry you much farther. Leave me, Rebecca whispered. Take my horse. Go back to your quiet life. Not happening. Without another word, Nathaniel lifted Rebecca onto his own horse and swung up behind her. The closeness was immediate and overwhelming, her warmth against his chest, the scent of her hair. This won't work, Rebecca protested. Your horse can't carry us both up these mountains. Storm's stronger than he looks, just like his owner. Despite everything, Rebecca smiled at that. Storm? Catherine named him, said he was born during the worst blizzard she'd ever seen. They rode double for the next hour, climbing higher into the mountains. Rebecca fit perfectly in Nathaniel's arms, as if she'd always belonged there. The realization terrified him. But what terrified him more was how right it felt. When they stopped to rest near a mountain stream, Rebecca turned to face him. Tell me about Catherine, she said softly. Why? Because she's part of who you are. And if we're going to trust each other. Nathaniel was quiet for so long that Rebecca thought he wouldn't answer. Then in the darkness he began to speak. Met her at a church social when I was 22. She was the preacher's daughter, smart as a whip and twice as stubborn. His voice carried the warmth of old love. Everyone said she was too good for a dirt-poor rancher like me. But she didn't think so. No, she saw something in me I couldn't see in myself. Nathaniel's hands clenched on the reins, made me want to be better, stronger, the man she believed I could become. You were lucky to have that. For 8 years, then the influenza came and luck ran out. Rebecca reached back and touched his hand briefly. She'd be proud of what you're doing, helping me. Maybe, or maybe she'd say I was a fool for getting involved. Which do you think? Nathaniel considered this. Both, probably. They shared a quiet laugh, the sound strange in the mountain silence. Dawn was breaking when they reached Devil's Backbone, a narrow ridge with drops on both sides. Storm picked his way carefully across the treacherous path. Halfway across, Rebecca tensed. Someone's following us. Nathaniel had heard it too, the distant sound of hoofbeats echoing off canyon walls. Morrison's persistent. I'll give him that. How many? Hard to tell. 3, maybe 4. They reached the other side of the ridge as the first shots rang out. Bullets whined off the rocks around them, sending stone chips flying. Ride! Nathaniel shouted. Storm leaped forward into a gallop, carrying them down a steep slope toward a dense grove of aspens. More shots echoed behind them. but the trees provided cover. They rode hard for another mile before Nathaniel pulled up in a hidden meadow. "We can't outrun them much longer," Rebecca said, breathing hard. "Don't have to. We're almost there." Nathaniel pointed toward a gap between two peaks. "Silverton's just beyond that pass. Elena will hide you until we can figure out a permanent solution." "What about you?" "I'll lead them away. Buy you time to reach safety." Rebecca's eyes flashed with anger. "Absolutely not. I won't let you sacrifice yourself for me. It's not your choice." "Like hell it isn't." Before Nathaniel could stop her, Rebecca slid down from the horse and grabbed his rifle from the saddle scabbard. "What are you doing?" "Making a stand. Right here, right now. Rebecca, be reasonable. I've spent 6 months being reasonable. Being quiet, being the good little victim." Her voice shook with fury and determination. "I'm done running." The sound of approaching riders grew louder. Nathaniel could see dust rising through the trees. "This is madness," he said. "Maybe. But it's my madness to choose." Rebecca checked the rifle's action with practiced efficiency. "Besides, you said it yourself. Catherine wouldn't have run from a fight." Nathaniel stared at her. This woman who'd arrived broken and desperate had transformed before his eyes. She stood like a warrior now, ready to face whatever came. And suddenly Nathaniel realized something that shook him to his core. He was falling in love with her. Not the gentle, growing love he'd felt for Catherine. This was something wild and fierce, a love born in danger and forged in defiance. "All right," he said quietly. "We make our stand here." They took positions behind fallen logs at the meadow's edge. Morrison and 3 men emerged from the trees, spreading out in a half circle. "Rebecca Morgan," Morrison called out, "you're only making this harder on yourself." "Go to hell, Morrison." Morrison laughed. "Feisty little thing, aren't you? Your father was right. You are unstable. My father is a corrupt coward who hides behind men like you. And Hayes here is a fool who's going to die for someone he barely knows." That's when Rebecca stood up, fully exposing herself to their guns. "You want to know something, Morrison? He's not dying for a stranger." Her voice rang clear across the meadow. "He's dying for the woman who loves him." The words hit Nathaniel like a physical blow. She loved him. This incredible, brave, impossible woman loved him. But before he could process the revelation fully, Morrison's men opened fire. The battle was brief but vicious. Nathaniel's military training kicked in, and he placed shots with deadly accuracy. Rebecca proved she could handle a rifle as well as any man. When the smoke cleared, 2 of Morrison's men were down. Morrison himself sat clutching a wounded arm. "This isn't over," he snarled as his remaining man helped him retreat. "Yes," Nathaniel said coldly. "It is." Something in his voice made Morrison look at him more carefully. For the first time, the enforcer saw not a grieving hermit but a dangerous man protecting what mattered to him. After Morrison's group disappeared, Nathaniel and Rebecca stood in the sudden silence. The words she'd spoken during the fight hung between them like smoke. "Did you mean it?" Nathaniel asked finally. Rebecca's courage seemed to drain away. "I shouldn't have said it. Not like that. Not in front of them. That's not what I asked." She looked up at him, tears streaming down her face. "Yes. I meant it. I know it's crazy. I know we barely know each other. But somewhere between your porch and this meadow, I fell in love with you, Nathaniel Hayes." Nathaniel crossed the space between them in 3 strides. His hands cupped her face, thumbs brushing away her tears. Not half as crazy as a man who spent 3 years building walls around his heart, only to have them crumble the moment a brave woman rode into his yard. "Does that mean?" "It means I love you too, Rebecca Morgan. God help us both." When he kissed her, it was like coming alive after 3 years of being dead, fierce and desperate and full of promise. But their moment of peace was shattered by a rifle shot from the trees. One of Morrison's men hadn't retreated after all. Yet what happened next would test everything they'd just discovered about love and courage. The rifle shot came from behind a boulder 50 yards away. Nathaniel threw himself forward, knocking Rebecca to the ground as the bullet whistled through the space where her head had been. They rolled behind the fallen log as more shots peppered the meadow. "Stay down," Nathaniel growled, working the lever on his rifle. The hidden gunman was good, professional. He'd waited until they were distracted, vulnerable. Now he had them pinned behind inadequate cover. "I can see his muzzle flash," Rebecca whispered. "Behind that big rock. Morrison's best man, Jake Carlisle." Nathaniel's voice was grim. Should have known he wouldn't retreat with the others. Another shot splintered the log inches from Rebecca's shoulder. She flinched but didn't cry out. How many rounds do we have left? Not enough for a long fight. Nathaniel studied their position. They were trapped. The gunman had the high ground and better cover. Worse, Storm had spooked at the first shot and bolted, taking their supplies and extra ammunition with him. Rebecca, listen to me. There's a creek bed about 30 yards behind us. When I start shooting, you run for it. Follow the water downstream until you reach the mining road. I'm not leaving you. You have to. One of us needs to survive to tell the truth about your father. Then we both survive. Before Nathaniel could argue, Rebecca was moving. She sprinted in a wide arc, drawing Carlyle's fire while Nathaniel flanked to the left. The plan worked. Caught between two positions, Carlyle couldn't cover both angles. Nathaniel got a clear shot and took it. Carlyle toppled backward, his rifle clattering down the rocks. Is he dead? Rebecca asked, breathing hard. Nathaniel approached cautiously, rifle ready. The man's eyes stared sightlessly at the morning sky. Yeah, he's done. They stood in the sudden silence, the reality of what they'd survived slowly sinking in. 3 men dead, others wounded and retreating, and somehow they were still alive. We make a good team, Rebecca said quietly. Too good, maybe. The words carried weight beyond their surface meaning. They'd fought together like partners who'd known each other for years, trusted each other completely in life or death moments. That kind of bond was rare, precious, and terrifying. We should keep moving, Nathaniel said. Morrison will be back with more men. But as they gathered their few remaining supplies, Rebecca stumbled. Blood soaked through her shirt sleeve. You're hit. Just a graze. Rebecca tried to wave him off, but her face had gone pale. Nathaniel examined the wound. The bullet had carved a furrow along her upper arm. Not fatal, but deep enough to need attention. We need to get you to Elena. She's got medical supplies. I can ride. Like hell you can. You've lost blood. And that wound needs cleaning. Nathaniel fashioned a sling from his spare shirt and bound the injury as best he could. But Rebecca was weaker than she wanted to admit. When Storm returned, drawn by Nathaniel's whistling, Rebecca could barely lift herself into the saddle. They made slow progress up the final trail to Silverton. The abandoned mining town clung to the mountainside like a ghost, most of its buildings empty and weathered. But smoke rose from one cabin chimney. Elena Vasquez was a small, fierce woman in her 50s who'd helped dozens of people disappear over the years. She took one look at Rebecca's wound and ushered them inside. Morrison's men? She asked as she cleaned the injury. 3 dead, 2 wounded, Nathaniel reported. That'll make him cautious, but not for long. Elena's dark eyes were serious. Judge Morgan has put $1,000 bounty on his daughter. Dead or alive. Rebecca went white. $1,000? Half the territory will be hunting you now. The number hung in the air like a death sentence. $1,000 could buy land, cattle, a new life. Men would kill their own mothers for that kind of money. There's more, Elena continued. Word is the judge has hired professionals, bounty hunters from Denver. They'll be here within days. Nathaniel felt the walls closing in. Local thugs like Morrison were one thing. Professional killers were another entirely. What do you suggest? Get her out of the territory. Tonight. Where? I know people in California. Good people who ask no questions. Rebecca struggled to sit up despite Elena's protests. No, I won't run to California and hide while my father destroys more lives. Child, be reasonable. I have evidence. Names, dates, amounts. Everything needed to bring him down. Rebecca's eyes burned with fever and determination. I won't give up now. You'll be dead before you reach Denver, Nathaniel said bluntly. Maybe, but at least I'll die fighting. The stubborn courage in her voice reminded Nathaniel painfully of Catherine. She'd had that same fire, that same refusal to back down from what was right. It was what he'd loved most about her, and what had gotten her killed. There might be another way, Elena said slowly. Both Nathaniel and Rebecca turned to her. The territorial marshal is coming through Bear Creek next week. If we could get word to him directly. Peters is corrupt, Rebecca interrupted. Not Peters. Marshal Williams from the Capitol. He's investigating reports of judicial corruption. If he could see your evidence. Hope flickered in Rebecca's eyes. Would he believe me? With proper documentation? Yes. But getting to Bear Creek alive? Elena shook her head. That's 50 miles through country crawling with bounty hunters. I'll get her there, Nathaniel said. This isn't your fight, Rebecca protested weakly. Nathaniel looked at her lying on Elena's cot, wounded but unbroken. This woman who'd brought chaos to his quiet life, who'd made him feel alive again. Yes, he said quietly. It is. That evening, as Rebecca slept fitfully, Nathaniel sat on Elena's porch watching the sunset. The older woman joined him with 2 cups of coffee. You love her, Elena observed. It wasn't a question. Didn't plan to. Love rarely asks permission. They sat in comfortable silence for a while. Then Elena spoke again. Your wife. She died helping others, yes? Nathaniel nodded. And now you're helping someone else. Someone who could get you killed. The situations are different. Are they? Nathaniel considered this. In some ways, Elena was right. He was once again risking everything for a woman who refused to stay safe. But there was a crucial difference. With Catherine, I let her go alone. This time I'm not standing aside, even if it kills you. Especially then. Elena smiled sadly. You can't save the world, you know. Can't undo the past. Maybe not. But I can do what's right. Right now. For her. And if you both die in the attempt? Nathaniel was quiet for a long moment. Then at least we die together, fighting for something that matters. Inside the cabin, Rebecca stirred restlessly. She was dreaming, calling out warnings about riders in the night. She's strong, Elena said. Stronger than she knows. Strong enough for what's coming? Nathaniel didn't answer immediately. The bounty hunters would be professionals, ruthless, well-armed. Getting Rebecca to Bear Creek alive would require luck, skill, and probably a miracle. But looking through the window at her sleeping form, Nathaniel felt something he hadn't experienced in 3 years. Purpose. We'll find out, he said. That night, as Rebecca recovered and Nathaniel planned their route to Bear Creek, neither of them knew that Judge Morgan had just doubled the bounty, or that the most dangerous bounty hunter in the territory had already picked up their trail. But what they would discover was that love, once awakened, could be stronger than fear. And that sometimes the greatest battles are won not by the strongest fighters, but by those with the most to lose. The real test was about to begin. They left Silverton before dawn, racing against time and bounty hunters. Rebecca's arm was better, but she was still weak. Nathaniel kept Storm at an easy pace, constantly scanning the horizon for trouble. It found them at Willow Ridge. The bounty hunter sat his horse in the middle of the trail like death itself, tall, lean, dressed in black leather. Twin colts hung low on his hips. Jackson Reeves, Nathaniel breathed. Even Rebecca had heard the name. Reeves never missed, never gave up, never left witnesses. $1,000 is a lot of money, Reeves called out, his voice carrying easily across the distance. She's under my protection, Nathaniel replied. Reeves laughed, a sound like winter wind through dead trees. Your protection, you're a dirt farmer playing hero. Maybe. But I'm the dirt farmer standing between you and her. The bounty hunter's eyes glittered with cold amusement. Noble. Stupid, but noble. Rebecca urged her horse forward. This is my fight. No, Nathaniel said firmly. It's ours. Something in his tone made Reeves study them more carefully. The way they sat their horses. The easy partnership between them. This wasn't a random good deed. This was love. Ah, Reeves said softly. Now I understand. His hand dropped to his gun. Nathaniel was fast, but Reeves was faster. The bounty hunter's first shot took Nathaniel's hat clean off. His second would have been fatal, but Rebecca's horse reared, spoiling his aim. The fight was vicious and brief. When the smoke cleared, Reeves lay motionless in the dust. Nathaniel clutched his shoulder, blood seeping between his fingers. How bad? Rebecca asked, sliding down to help him. I'll live. We need to move. They rode hard for Bear Creek, Nathaniel swaying in his saddle but refusing to stop. Rebecca's evidence burned like fire in her saddlebags, so close to justice now. They reached the town as Marshal Williams was preparing to leave. Rebecca thrust her carefully documented proof into his hands. Judge Morgan, she gasped. Corruption, murder, it's all there. The marshal examined the papers with growing amazement. Names, dates, amounts, a complete record of judicial corruption spanning 5 years. Miss Morgan, he said quietly, this changes everything. 6 months later, Judge Morgan sat in territorial prison, his corrupt network destroyed. Rebecca's courage had brought justice to hundreds of victims. And in a small cabin by Willow Creek, Nathaniel Hayes was learning to love again. Any regrets? Rebecca asked as they watched the sunset from their porch. About giving up silence, Nathaniel pulled her closer. Not a single one. Rebecca laughed, a sound sweeter than any silence he'd ever known. Because sometimes the best part of finding love isn't the dramatic rescue or passionate declarations. Sometimes it's simply discovering that you're no longer alone. The creek whispered its ancient song, birds called from the pines, and for the first time in 3 years, Nathaniel Hayes welcomed every sound. After all, silence was vastly overrated when you had someone worth talking to and loving forever.